Have you ever felt the crushing weight of someone's presence before they even opened their mouth? That moment when a person walks into a room and every molecule of air seems to shift, rearranging itself around this new gravitational force. The strange power when eyes lock across a crowded space and suddenly, you're the only two people who exist? This is not magic. It's not even charisma in the way most fools understand it. No, this is something far more primal, far more honest. This is the raw expression of will to power that Nietzsche understood centuries before our modern psychologists started selling you watered-down versions of his insights packaged as self-help. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you entered a room and felt yourself shrink? How often have you watched as others command attention while you fade into the background like some pitiful extra in the movie of your own life? Painful to consider, isn't it? But we don't grow through comfort. We grow through confronting exactly what we fear most about ourselves. Today, we're diving into the psychological abyss that most content creators are too afraid to explore. We're going to dissect how to develop a presence so powerful it stuns people into silence, all without uttering a single word. The silent language of power. Let's begin with a concept Nietzsche understood well. Most human communication has nothing to do with words. You've been lied to, my friends. While the average person obsesses over what clever thing to say next, the true masters of psychological control understand that words are merely decoration. Real power communicates through something far more honest: your body, your eyes, your presence. When Nietzsche wrote about the Übermensch, his concept of the overman who transcends conventional morality, he wasn't describing someone who had memorized the most motivational cue. He was describing someone who had reconnected with the primal truth of their existence. Someone who carried themselves with such unapologetic authenticity that others could feel it like electricity in the air. But here's the brutal reality you need to hear. Most of you watching this video right now are sleepwalking through life. You're so disconnected from your own power that you wouldn't recognize it if it presented before your face. You've been domesticated into believing that words, empty, hollow words, are how you make your mark on the world. What if I told you the most powerful message you'll ever send won't come from your mouth, but from the silent authority you project? The psychological foundations of silent dominance. There are 3 psychological pillars that create stunning presence without words. I call them the Nietzschean Triad of silent power: unshakable self-knowledge, comfort with discomfort, the embracing of contradiction. Let's break these down with the kind of honesty most people can't stomach. Unshakable self-knowledge. Do you know who you are? No, I'm not asking about your job title or what personality quiz result you got last week. I'm asking if you've done the terrifying work of staring into the abyss of your own soul until it stared back at you. Nietzsche understood that most people live in absolute terror of true self-knowledge. They construct elaborate fantasies about who they are because the reality is too uncomfortable to face. But here's what separates the psychological infants from the giants who stun rooms into silence. The giants have confronted every demon living inside them. When you know exactly who you are, your darkness, your light, your capabilities, your weaknesses, it radiates from you like heat. Others can sense it. They may not understand why they suddenly feel small in your presence, but that's exactly what happens when someone with unshakable self-knowledge enters their space. How do you develop this? By asking yourself the questions that make you sweat at night. By peeling back every comfortable layer of self-deception you've wrapped around yourself. What are you running from? What parts of yourself have you disowned? What truths about your nature have you been too cowardly to face? Uncomfortable yet? Good. Growth lives on the other side of comfort. Comfort with discomfort, which brings us to the second pillar. Developing an intimate relationship with discomfort. The average person structures their entire existence around avoiding discomfort. They craft a life designed to shield them from anything that might disturb their fragile emotional equilibrium. And then they wonder why they feel so powerless, so invisible. Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, love of fate, means embracing even the most difficult aspects of existence. When you cultivate comfort with discomfort, something magical happens in your nonverbal presence. You stop fidgeting. You stop the nervous laughter. You stop the 1,000 tiny movements that scream insecurity to everyone around you. Instead, you develop something rare: stillness, the ability to sit in silence without filling it, the capacity to hold eye contact when others look away, the power to stand your ground when others would retreat. Think about the last time you were around someone with this quality. Didn't it feel like they were occupying more space than their physical body actually took up? That's the radiating effect of someone who's no longer running from discomfort. The embracing of contradiction. Now for the third pillar, which may be the most powerful of all: embracing contradiction. Small minds need consistency. They need everything to fit into neat little boxes with clear labels. But Nietzsche recognized that the most powerful human beings contain multitudes. They are walking contradictions who've stopped trying to resolve themselves into something palatable for others. When you embrace your contradictions, you become psychologically ungraspable. People can't put their finger on exactly what you are, and this creates a magnetic fascination. You might be intensely intellectual one moment and primal the next, compassionate and then merciless, playful and then deadly serious. The true psychological masters don't try to smooth out these edges. They sharpen them. Think about the most captivating people you've ever encountered. I guarantee they all share this quality. They surprise you. They don't behave according to some predictable algorithm. There's something wonderfully dangerous about their unpredictability. But most of you watching right now are terrified of your own contradictions. You're desperately trying to present a consistent image to the world because you think that's what creates trust. What it actually creates is boredom. And nothing, absolutely nothing, diminishes your presence more than being boring. The physical manifestation of silent power. Now that we've established the psychological foundation, let's talk about how this manifests physically. Because make no mistake, your body is constantly broadcasting your internal state, whether you're aware of it or not. The eyes, windows to power. Nietzsche understood the power of the gaze long before modern psychology studied it. Your eyes are perhaps the most potent nonverbal weapon in your arsenal. Most people use their eyes to seek approval. They glance around nervously, looking for validation, for confirmation that they belong. Their eyes plead, "Do you accept me? Am I doing this right?" How pathetic. The eyes should be instruments of penetration, not supplication. When you've done the internal work we discussed earlier, your gaze transforms. It no longer seeks, it assesses. It no longer asks, it declares. Practice this. Look at people as if you can see through their masks, as if you're perceiving something about them that even they don't know. Not in a creepy way, that's just another form of insecurity, but with the calm certainty of someone who understands human nature at a fundamental level. When someone speaks to you, don't rush to nod or agree. Let your eyes rest on them with patient intensity, as if you're weighing not just their words, but the soul behind those words. This alone will stun people into silence more effectively than any clever retort. Physical stillness, the rarity of true presence. Next, we must address physical stillness, perhaps the rarest quality in our fidgety, distracted world. Watch people in any social setting. Notice their constant adjustments, touching their face, shifting their weight, checking their phone, glancing around. Each movement is a tiny confession of insecurity, a subtle request for something external to soothe their internal discomfort. The person who has mastered stillness stands out like a statue among marionettes. There's something almost otherworldly about someone who can simply be without the compulsive need to do. This comes directly from the second pillar we discussed, comfort with discomfort. When you're no longer running from your own internal states, your body reflects this. You don't need to fidget because silence doesn't scare you. You don't need to fill space because emptiness doesn't threaten you. Practice this. In your next social interaction, reduce your movements by half. Then, in the next one, reduce them by half again. Notice how this changes not only how others perceive you, but how you perceive yourself. Deliberate movement. The power of intention. When you do move, and of course you will move, make each movement deliberate. Nothing communicates psychological power like intentionality of movement. Watch how a lion moves. There's no wasted energy, no movement without purpose. Each step is placed exactly where it's intended, with precisely the force required, no more, no less. Most humans move like anxious squirrels by comparison, darting, reactive, excessive. Their movements betray a mind that's not fully in control of itself. The person who moves with deliberate intention communicates something profound without words. I am the author of my actions, not a victim of my impulses. Practice moving as if every gesture costs you something. Eliminate the nervous habits, the unconscious adjustments. When you reach for something, do it with complete presence. When you walk across a room, do it with full awareness. People will feel the difference even if they can't articulate why. The strategic application of silent power. Now let's discuss how to strategically apply these principles in real-world situations. Because theory without application is masturbation. It might feel good in the moment, but it produces nothing of value. Entering spaces. The critical first moments, the way you enter a physical space, sets the psychological tone for everything that follows. Most people enter rooms apologetically. They slip in, trying to minimize disruption, already compromising their presence before they've even fully arrived. What a waste of a powerful opportunity. Instead, try this. Before entering any space, pause at the threshold. Take one deep breath. Remind yourself of who you are, not your social mask, but your authentic self with all its magnificent contradictions. Then enter as if you belong there completely, as if the space has been waiting for your arrival. Don't immediately seek out someone to talk to. That signals dependence. Instead, take in the room. Let your gaze travel slowly across the space. Let others notice you before you notice any individual. This creates a subtle power dynamic that others will respond to without knowing exactly why. You've established yourself not as a petitioner seeking social acceptance, but as a complete entity who exists with or without their validation. The strategic use of silence. Silence is the most underutilized psychological tool in human interaction. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they'll say nearly anything to fill it, including things that diminish their power. Nietzsche understood that words should be used economically, that silence creates the space in which your presence can expand to its full dimensions. When someone asks you a question, don't rush to answer. Let the question hang in the air for a moment. Not only does His give you time to formulate a more powerful response, but it creates a moment of tension that heightens the impact of whatever you eventually say, or choose not to say. Sometimes the most stunning response is no response at all, just a look that communicates volumes more than words ever could. The power of walking away. Finally, never underestimate the psychological impact of strategic withdrawal. Most people cling to social interactions out of fear. Fear of missing out, fear of offending, fear of being forgotten if they aren't constantly present. The person who can walk away at the height of interest, who can withdraw their presence while others are still hungry for it, this person demonstrates a level of self-sufficiency that stuns observers. Practice leaving conversations while they're still engaging, exiting events while the energy is still high. This communicates something profound, that you are the source of your own satisfaction, not dependent on external validation to feel complete. Nothing makes people value your presence more than the realization that you don't need theirs. The ethical dimension. Power without exploitation. Now I can already hear the small minds preparing their criticisms. Isn't this manipulative? Isn't this just about dominating others? Such questions reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of true power. Real power, the kind Nietzsche wrote about, isn't about dominating others. It's about becoming so sovereign within yourself that external validation becomes irrelevant. The principles I'm sharing don't diminish others. They invite others to rise to their own potential. When you walk into a room embodying unshakable self-knowledge, comfort with discomfort, and the full embrace of your contradictions, you give silent permission to everyone around you to do the same. This is perhaps the most stunning effect of all, that in refusing to shrink yourself, you create space for others to expand. In rejecting social masks, you allow others to remove theirs. In embracing your authentic power, you illuminate the possibility that they could do the same. Is this comfortable? Of course not. Growth never is. Will some people recoil from your presence? Absolutely. Those who are committed to their own smallness will always be threatened by those who refuse to diminish themselves. But for those ready to evolve, encountering someone who embodies these principles isn't threatening, it's liberating. So where do you begin this journey? How do you transform from someone whose presence evaporates into someone whose silence commands attention? First, commit to the internal work. No external technique will create lasting impact if it's not rooted in authentic psychological development. Begin with ruthless self-examination. Write down your answers to the uncomfortable questions we discussed earlier. What are you running from? What parts of yourself have you disowned? What truths about your nature have you been too cowardly to face? Second, practice the physical discipline of presence. Reduce unnecessary movement, cultivate deliberate action, master the art of the penetrating gaze. These aren't techniques to be deployed occasionally. They're practices to be integrated into your daily existence until they become as natural as breathing. Third, seek out discomfort rather than avoiding it. Put yourself in social situations that challenge you. Practice holding silence when everything in you wants to fill it with nervous chatter. Stay present when your instinct is to reach for your phone or find some other form of escape. And finally, embrace your contradictions. Stop trying to present a consistent image to the world. Allow yourself to be the complex, multifaceted being that you actually are. This alone will make you more psychologically fascinating than 99% of the people you encounter. Let me leave you with what might be the ultimate insight into stunning presence. The most powerful person in any room isn't the one desperately trying to prove their power. It's the one who has nothing to prove at all. When you've done the internal work we've discussed, when you've cultivated the physical presence we've explored, you reach a state where you no longer need external validation to know your worth. This is the final and perhaps most stunning manifestation of silent power, complete psychological self-sufficiency. People will feel this. They won't know exactly what they're feeling, but they'll be drawn to it like moths to flame. Because in a world of chronic emptiness and insecurity, someone who is truly full, truly complete within themselves, exerts an almost gravitational pull. You've stayed with me through this exploration of silent power. You've faced uncomfortable truths. You've glimpsed what might be possible if you commit to this path of development. The question now is, do you have the courage to actually embody these principles? Or will you return to the comfortable smallness that most people mistake for living? The choice, as always, is yours. But know this: Once you've recognized the possibility of your own power, returning to powerlessness becomes its own special kind of hell. If you found value in this exploration of Nietzschean psychology and silent power, smash that like button. Subscribe to go deeper into psychological mastery that most content creators are too afraid to explore, because I don't want you to miss anything. Share this video with someone who needs to awaken to their own potential. Until next time, remember that the most stunning thing you can do in a world of empty noise is to embody silent power